So one of the first things I noticed really early on in this game is this large gap that the opponents have between their defence and their midfield here. Now, this could have been because your central midfield all started to come towards the ball and cluster this area around here. So the ball's over here with this man. And this sort of drew out their central midfield, leaving this large gap in the middle here. So what needs to happen here is someone needs to make sure that they're utilising this large gap. This either got to be from the striker, the centre attacking mid, or possibly even the right winger. So if the striker, he's drawn out these two centre backs, he can then make a darting run back into this space and try and receive the ball and then play 1-2 and maybe go through that way. Or I think one of the better options here would be for the centre attacking mid to drop off into the space. That way, if the person man marking him follows him, then that means that frees up more space in this area here for someone else to try and exploit. Or if he doesn't follow him, then that means he can get that ball turn, and then he has a great option with the striker or this right winger. Now, one other option as well is, like I said, this right winger. So right now, the right back and the right winger, they're kind of out of play at the moment. So one option could be is for this right winger to then come inside and utilise this space here and allow our right back to then push up really wide. And that way you're sort of getting the best of both worlds, because you have someone utilising this space and you still have that option for that width. And then this way you have like the extra option and an extra chance to try and score. This was really early on in the game, so I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. It's just something you can always look to do, even if you feel like you want to stick to your position. I just think if there's a large gap, a large area of space, someone like Pulisic does this a lot for Chelsea, is they will often come inside and try and get that space and pick up that ball and then turn and have a go at their defence, because it's really important to make sure that you're breaking the lines and getting it through that midfield so that you can run head on against their defence. So here is a bit of footage of you guys on the counter. I really enjoyed watching this. I'm going to play it through and just comment over it. I think there was just a mistake near the end of the counter, and it just meant that you weren't able to create a great scoring opportunity. But we'll play it through and see what happens. So as we win it here, this is a great ball. You've got the pace of your striker here with a great run to get goal side of his man and then get into this corner here. But the second he gets into this position here, where he's being squared up by one man here, and then even if he gets round this defender here, he's also got this defender then to probably come across and provide pretty good cover for if he gets round this player. So really easy option here is just to drop it into that right back here, who's then got the option of two men who made great runs into the box. And I just think you chose to try and take it round the player, which isn't a bad idea. Like, it shows good confidence and good trust in your ability. But sometimes if you look for that easier option, this man's got a free cross, and whether or not he's got a good cross, I don't know. But if he can get that ball in, then it creates a great scoring opportunity for your team. But unfortunately, you lose it down there, and that's where that man's able to then win it, and they just play it out from there. So what I'm going to play in a minute is just an example of where sometimes your communication lacks a little bit as a team as a whole, because your striker is about to try and press the ball and try and win the ball high up, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if he doesn't have that support from the rest of you, then the communication needs to be there to tell him to sit back, and that way it's harder to play through him. But they play through him really easily. So we'll play it from here and just see what happens. So as that ball comes in here, he's ready to press, which is really good. He's doing a good job here, but he doesn't have the support with him. So that when that ball goes across there, it's just really easy for them to play it out, and he's now the wrong side of the ball, and they just play it across. So if his team tell him to sit and possibly just mark one of their centre backs, then that way you can force them to one area. So if I just skip back a little bit. So here, what he's doing is he's trying to cut out this pass into this man here, which is really good. But when they play it back to that centre back, what he's got to then decide is, if you guys tell him that you're not all pressing together, then he'll just either run over to this centre back or to this centre back, which will then force them onto one side. And because if he presses, let's say, if he sticks with this man who's got the ball here, then you guys know that he's going to play it out onto this left side, and then you can all shuffle across, like preempting that. However, because he presses centrally, then it means, and he presses this goalkeeper, it means they play it around easily, and they have the options of going back out the other way, and it just makes it really easy for them to play out. So just make sure you're telling your striker when or when not to press, and that way he's saving energy, and it's not as easy for him to play around and for him to get the wrong side of the ball. So this is something I picked up on quite a bit throughout the game. Because you guys have chosen to play 4-2-3-1, so you have 2 CDMs and then three midfielders up top, sort of like attacking midfielders. Your attacking side has decided to press, whereas your defensive side is sitting, which then creates this large sort of gap in between here. So the decision needs to be made whether your team's going to sit back and allow the pressure to come on and keep that solid shape that you have at the back. Because defensively, you're quite sound most of the time, other than when this was being exploited. Because this large gap here, if I play on from here right now, you can see with one pass, that means you now have 4 players out of the game, wrong side of the ball, which is not exactly where you want to be. So the decision needs to be made whether you're going to press as a team and all step up to make sure that gap between you there is a lot closer, or are you going to sit back and allow your attackers to then drop back and try and get them on a counter? So the decision needs to be made there, because otherwise you're going to be stuck in positions like this where you have 2 centre mids and even this left back or left mid getting in a lot of space and then able to try and create chances. But fortunately, your defence was quite solid throughout most of the game. There were some areas which we'll go into later, but they were pretty solid throughout most of the game and managed to snuff out a lot of these chances, along with your CDMs, who did a very good job. But it just means that it's sometimes quite hard work for them. So the decision needs to be made there as to whether you're going to press as a whole team, as a whole unit, or whether you're going to allow your attackers to sit back and try and form a closer line and not allow them to break the lines as easily. So this is just one area where I think the defence sometimes lacked a bit of structure or maybe a bit of communication breakdown. But as you can see here, there's large gaps between your right back and your centre back, your centre back and your centre back, and your centre back and your left back. Now, what I want to see is when the opponents have that ball, you want to make sure that your defence is a lot closer together, because if they can play a ball in between these 2 players or in between your right back and your centre back, which isn't too hard because of the large gap, then they're going to be through 1-on-1 and have a really good chance of scoring. However, if your defence join a lot closer and let's say your right back comes into here and your centre back comes a little bit tighter into your other centre back here, and then again your left back can, if there's a man out wide, he can stay a little bit further out wide, because that ball is on that right hand side for the opponents, which means that's where the danger is. Which also means that your right back doesn't need to be out here marking this number 11 so tightly, because if he's tucked in here, he's providing a lot more cover for your centre back in case a ball goes over the top. And then if they do try and switch that ball to this number 11 here, because it's such a long ball to try and play, you're going to have enough time to get back across and watch that ball and possibly get him on his touch. It's a really tricky ball to try and play that across and get him through 1-on-1. Whereas a ball, let's say between these 2 centre backs, or a ball in between your centre back and right back, it's a lot easier to play, because you can play it along that ground, because you don't have such a tight back 4. So I just want to make sure that throughout the game you're keeping aware that these gaps are here. And if they're playing on this side here, if they're in this area here, then that's fine for your right back to be a lot closer to this 11, because that's where the danger is. And then again, everyone will shuffle across, and your left back will again come in closer to this centre back and allow that ball to be switched. Because especially at this level, if a player tries to do a switch ball all the way across from one end of the pitch to the other, it's going to have to be a pretty amazing ball for one. Again, the touch is going to have to be amazing from their winger, and this can create great chances for you guys to exploit their weaknesses or their weak touch, their weak pass, win that ball, and then change over possession and get on the counter attack. So just make sure you're always keeping aware that these gaps have always got to be really, really tight. Otherwise, it's going to be really easy for opponents to play through them if they're aware and have that quality to get through. So this is just a quick example of something I saw happen quite a lot. Is you guys always try to look for balls over the top. Now, obviously, I don't know your team that well, but you may have a really fast striker who can try and outpace their centre backs, but it's not going to come off as consistently as what you can do and what I've seen you do throughout the game in a lot of other places. So here, from this centre back, for some reason, the first thought is to look straight over the top. Now there is space here to exploit, but it's going to have to be a very good pass and a very well timed run from both players who have to both try and stay onside with this high line. Now it is always good to try and exploit this. Like, they have a very high line, and if you have that pace, it's good to try and exploit it. But if you want to try and play a bit try and play more confident football and try and keep that possession and tire your opponents out, it'll work a lot better in the long run for you, because your opponents will get sick of you having possession, they'll tire, and you'll be able to exploit gaps easier than if you're just looking for balls straight over the top. So here your centre back's about to try and play a long ball over the top. I can't remember if it works or not, but an option here is this right back. He can come even further wide here. He can start sprinting wide, and this ball can just be played right into this gap, okay, because he's got all the space in this area here. Okay, that's one thing I want to make sure you're always looking out for. It's just where that space is. Okay, if there's a large pocket of space, then someone's got to be in there trying to receive it. Even if it feels like you're going out of position a little bit, you need to make sure that someone's in these large pockets to try and receive that ball and play through the lines. So here, an easy pass. I know you guys are very capable of this because I've seen lots of great passes throughout this game. An easy pass could be a ball into here, a bit of energy from this right back to try and get out wide and give that option. And look at that. If you play that ball into there, you've already got 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, I think, players out of the game, because you played that ball here, and now it's like a 2-on-1 versus their left back. But let's see what happens. See, I can't remember if it works or not. There you go. It's just it takes a great ball to try and get it over that top, and there's too many variables that can stop this pass from working. Whereas a pass to this right back is much easier. You keep safe possession, and I think it's going to work better for you to try and create more chances and frustrate the opponents as well. So what I'm about to show here is a passage of play that led towards one of your goals. I just want to show it because it was really good football, and you win it back here off of a poor pass from one of their players. And there was a good little passage of play just before this as well. But I'll just show this one just because it was one that led up to the goal. But it was quick play, quick 1-2s, rather than looking for that piercing ball straight away. It was easy passes, and then you managed to create that chance, and you ended up scoring from it as well. So just play it through, just to show you guys that, what you can do when you don't try and force the play too hard. So we win it back here and just play a simple pass into the player's feet, who's showing. That's one thing as well. I just want to reiterate is chances are going to come more often from when you drop back in and show to feet, rather than when you're always looking for that same run. Because a lot of times I've seen like 3 or 4 players making the exact same run where it's just sprinting away from the ball. But when you come and offer to feet, it creates that extra chance for maybe a 1-2, and it's a much safer and easier way to create these chances. And it worked here. That player who's just come in to feet, I'll show it again. So look, he just drops in here, offers to feet, right in there, offers to feet, and he's able to play a 1-2 in there, and then again plays it into the man's feet, plays it back, and then keeper maybe should have saved it, but we won't say anything about that. And it was a good goal. It was a well-worked goal, and I just think you guys did that quite a few times throughout the game, but it just wasn't. I think you guys can do it a lot more, and just try and play to someone's feet and just show and offer to feet. Trust your ability, trust your touch, trust your teammates, and you're going to create a lot more chances and a lot more goals in your games. So I'm just going to provide a quick summary of what I saw from the game, and then finish off with a little clip of something that I just thought was really good, and something that needs to happen as often as you can. Is football nowadays, I think it's all about trying to break the lines and get those balls through attacking, midfielding, and defending lines. So this clip here is just an example of where you manage to get a good position out on this left wing and play through their lines, and then try and create a chance from it in the end as well. But throughout the game, you sort of eased into it as the game went on, and you're able to play these passes a lot more often. because you weren't always looking for that long ball like you were in the first half. In the first half, your first thought was to try and look for that long ball over the top, which sometimes works, and I think you got a couple goals from it as well. But if teams are aware to this, or if they even have like a faster centre backs, then it's going to be a lot easier for them to stop this. Whereas this is a much more consistent way of trying to create chances for yourselves against any team. So I'll just quickly show you this clip as well. Your centre back has it here. I don't know if this is your centre mid or your left mid, but whoever this number 15 is, he's found himself in a good pocket of space here. And look how many players that are going to be out of play from this one pass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players again going to be taken out from this one pass. And now you have an overload in their half. I think you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I think you got a left mid here as well. And the pass wasn't ideal, but again, you're creating these opportunities and you're getting this chances in this space. Just make sure that you're always aware of where these pockets of space are, and even if it feels like you're going out of position. So let's say if a left back sees a pocket of space in the sort of central defensive mid area, it's not bad for him to go out and get that, because he can turn and then he can go forwards and try and break these lines. So you don't always be so rigid with your position. If you see some space, be confident, get into that space, receive the ball to feet, turn, and try and find that pass through the defensive line. But all in all, it was a really interesting game to watch. It was, I think you guys won like 5-2 or something like that. It was So it was pretty good performance from you, and there's definitely like really promising passages of play in there, which I really enjoyed watching. But I just think you need to make sure you do it more consistently. I think that's the key here, is to make sure that you can play these great passages of play, these 1-2s, and get through and create good chances. So just make sure you're always thinking about that first. If that ball is an option long and you're finding success with it, by all means go for it. But it's not going to work as consistently as trying to play through the team and trust your teammates, trust your own ability to play these 1-2s and get into these pockets of space. But it's a really good game to watch, and I hope the analysis was helpful for you. Cheers, guys.